This is not a lore channel. This is not something I normally make videos on, honestly. But I'm gonna tell you right now that what we're about to talk about is heavy spoilers. Okay, so if you're, mostly worried about the spoilers of the future of WoW, then yeah, I guess don't watch the rest of this video. But I think this is a very, very interesting topic, one way or the other. And I think you should think about it because it makes me really, really think, as somebody who loves this game and loves seeing the development of it, what the actual future of WoW is, right? And there's a couple things that are kind of converging on this one topic of what this next expansion is. Okay. So there's an article on Wowhead. We're going to get into the spoiler stuff now. That's talking about the dungeon. I haven't done the dungeon. I've yet to do it. So maybe I'm misreading and misunderstanding some of this stuff, but this stuff really makes me think. And then all of this put together, plus a comment on this article, has revolutionized what I'm thinking about the future of WoW is as being. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Chrome's celebration is interrupted when Iridikron appears. He challenges Chromie about the Titans and her perspective on the true timeline. As he does, he holds up the relic we saw him with earlier, promising that someone called the Harbinger will pry our world from the Titans' grasp, and that he will be waiting for them when the Titans return. Finally, he leaves through a void portal. As he does, a figure can be seen standing with him. Okay. So, timelines, always enigmatic, always unique in this universe. Hard to understand, even in reality. Like, time is always one of the most enigmatic things. Like, really, any media that deals with time is always really confusing, but also really interesting. And, WoW hasn't handled it the best. They've been talking about this whole Murazon thing since TBC, which is crazy to me. It's the only real existential threat that has existed from the very early days of WoW and still is not resolved. So it makes me think like they have had a plan for this. Maybe it didn't play out the way the TBC developers would have wanted it to, but this is a major plot point. A major plot point, okay? And seemingly in the dungeon, part of it gets resolved because they defeated the ultimate bad guy of the. I really don't understand who the Infinite Dragonfly even is, but it's very, very, very important for the history of WoW and the future of WoW, seemingly. So, but what happens? The second version of the most enigmatic thing that happens in WoW gets brought up again. In my eyes, that's the Void and the Old Gods. And I'm going to tell you right now, they've been setting up something like this for a while. If you even look back at Shadowlands, there was a ton of Void stuff in Shadowlands, okay? And it's hard to not think some of these things are connected. So you could continue to read this stuff. I don't really care about this kind of stuff. This is more talking about the actual, like, immediate effects of the dungeon. Iridikron promises that we will burn in the flames of the brother's wrath, indicating the next arc of Dragonflight's story. So this is probably going to be what season 3 is, dealing with Fire. Apparently, there's some new world tree. I didn't even know this was the thing. But yeah, this is where it gets interesting. A world tree on fire is a devastatingly familiar one. The burning of Teldrassil is one of Warcraft's most tragic events, and once again, there is a cutting truth to Iridikron's words. When Teldrassil burned, one thing that shocked the Night Elves was the fact that their goddess Elune did not intervene. Though Elune is not a Titan, she is a being of similar power and possible origin, just associated with life rather than order. In the same way, Iridikron is probably right about the Titans not intervening if Mirjasil burns, no matter how many dragons who are loyal to the Titans die. There does seem to be evidence that the Titans will stop tragedy if we are affected, but only if it's a threat to them and their one true timeline. The tree is still new, still vulnerable, and the Green Dragonflight's new leader, Maritha, is largely untested, while Fyrakk has been recently empowered with Shadow Flame. The situation is dire and will require all of our attention. So it seems like one way or the other, Season 3 is probably going to be an Emerald Dream-based expansion, just talking about, all kinds of stuff going on there that's happening there. It's pretty much like that seems like it's confirmed. That is not what this video is about. This video is about what happens after that. And the main question is there going to be a season 4? So there was a season 4, like a fourth raid in a lot of expansions, but not every raid, not every expansion has it. This would certainly seem like one that would have it. But the most important part of it is Iridikron, in my opinion, and this relic and all the things he's saying here. So Iridikron holds up a relic telling us someone called the Harbinger will use this relic to pry the world from the Titan's grasp. We will speak more about the Harbinger in a moment, but let's first look at the relic. During the dawn of the Infinite Dungeon, we find Iridikron siphoning Galakrond's essence into this relic. When she sees it, Chromie claims it reminds her of a dragon soul, but even more ancient. The dragon soul is one of the single most powerful relics in Warcraft's history. Chromie's comparison suggests this relic is something to be taken seriously. And now that we can take a closer look at it, we can see that the relic is void aligned. So this is where it gets super interesting. This is stuff that I love. This is the one thing. I've never been a huge story guy, but I love all of these kind of like subtle things that are in here. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Before we can go further, it is worth noting how Iridikron's words call to mind a prophecy we read in 10.0.7, Return to the Forbidden Reach. The lore book, A Song of the Depths, the Naga explains why they've journeyed to the Forbidden Reach. This book talks about the Harbinger and a hunger lost to the ages, and seems to predict the exact same series of events that Iridikron is alluding to. Rise, our queen, calls to us from beyond the umbral veil. She has transcended the circle of stars and basks in her eternal grandeur. Now, if you remember, Queen Azshara was taken captive by N'Zoth and was then in the raid, the Ny'alotha raid, and we haven't heard from her since, right? The time we have long awaited is nigh. Even now the Harbinger gathers the children of the first flesh to reclaim what was lost. They must remember their vows and serve those to whom they owe fealty. While they toil in the deep places, we will journey to the shores of the Dragonlands, to the Blessed Isle where the Willbreakers first embraced the Whispers. As one storm recedes, another rises. The torches have been lit. The secrets he buried will strike as a dagger into the heart of his kin. The Harbinger speaks of the primal power that seeks the end of the order. Such rage can be bent to serve our ends. A hunger lost to the ages will be reclaimed. A dark heart left broken awaits the taking. When these things come to pass, the Harbinger will fulfill the final prophecy and complete the awakening. Only then shall our queen return to reign over sea and sky and earth. We must make ready. Galakrond's hunger. We've speculated before the hunger lost to the ages was referring to Galakrond's hunger. Iridikron's repeating the same line as he absorbs Galakrond's essence into the relic. It's confirming that. But what does that mean about Iridikron? Galakrond was the largest dragon to ever live. A hunger that was the result of the corruption by the old gods. Galakrond's hunger so powerful he began to eat his fellow dragons, and that was the first great threat to the dragon aspects. If Iridikron has harnessed Galakrond's power, he is destined to become at least as large as the behemoth. A terrifying and, if we're being honest, incredibly exciting prospect. But the Harbinger. When we first read about the Harbinger in the Song of the Depths, it was speculated it was Iridikron. Since Iridikron also speaks of the Harbinger, that is clearly not the case. What does seem likely is that the Harbinger is a mysterious figure standing with Iridikron in the cinematic. As Iridikron walks through the portal, the shadow of what appears to be a female elf can be briefly seen. According to Iridikron, the Harbinger is the one who will pry the soul from Azeroth from the Titan's grasp. According to the Naga, the Harbinger will fulfill the final prophecy and complete the awakening. We believe that this Harbinger must be Xal'atath. And I totally agree because they mention the dagger. Anytime you see the word dagger, this is like probably the most important like object in WoW in the last 7 years, right? The Shadow Priest artifact. It's pretty nuts. There's been a lot of really important objects in WoW, but this is actually the number one. Like, it was in every expansion, right? Was it in Shadowlands somewhere? Probably. But anyway, Xal'atath is the void entity once bound within the Legion Shadow Priest artifact. With the help of the player and a deal with N'Zoth, she freed herself from the blade during the battle for Azeroth. It is here where we first saw her take on the form of a void elf. There is a lot to suggest Xal'atath is extremely powerful. It's been speculated that she is an old god, perhaps even the 5th imprisoned old god mentioned in the Old Gods and the Ordering. Or perhaps she is an even more powerful being, something between an old god and a void lord. So yeah, I guess you see her. Well, I guess it looks like her. I don't even know. Like, yeah, you can see this right here. To me, dude, that kind of looks like Queen Azshara. When I first saw that, I was like, nah, that's Queen Azshara. But I don't know, man. I don't know. Either way, dude, void stuff and dragon stuff culminating is pretty cool. But the main thing here that we're talking about, and we're not even talking about what the next expansion is yet. We didn't even get to that point, okay? This is all talking about what's going to happen in this expansion, all right? So anyway, Iridikron describes the Harbinger prying Azeroth from the Titan's grasp, an act that will cause them to try to reclaim their prize. Once again, we refer to a line from A Song of the Depths. The Harbinger speaks of a primal power that seeks the end of order. Such rays can be bent to, so they're talking about the same thing we just read. The first line appears to be about the primalists, their rage at their unfair treatment. The second refers to Iridikron reclaiming Galakrond's hunger. And the third line, we believe, refers to Azeroth. And I totally agree. A dark heart left broken awaits the taking. So there's been so many different things that have been setting this up since Legion. One of them, though, is Il'gynoth. The imagery of a dark and broken heart reminds us of the old whisper of Il'gynoth. Her heart is a crater, and we have filled it. At the time, Azarath was badly injured and seemed vulnerable to the old god's corruption. When we helped heal her, at least we appeared to. Azarath still remained wounded, however, a rather large sword is sticking out of her. She may be far more vulnerable than we believe. Yes. And so now this is where it gets to the point like of no longer lore and start thinking about the game's development. Okay. Um, yeah. So let me talk about, let me read this comment first. Okay. And then let me talk about my perspective as somebody who just been following the game's development for 20 years. Okay. 20 years. Important. They are going to awaken the Titan Azeroth. As this is like a spoiler. This is like a leak. I read this as a leak. Okay. They are going to awaken the Titan Azeroth as a Dark Titan. And I think that's literally being like shown to us here. One way or the other. I think this is going to happen. Okay. We, the heroes of the Horde and Alliance, will have failed together with the Aspects and the other Guardians. This will be the last expansion of WoW 1.0, where we will find out that the Light and the Titans will just destroy Azeroth and us with it to prevent the Dark Titan and the Void of winning. Eventually, Nozdormu will send us back in time to a different timeline to start over and to try to prevent the awakening of Azeroth by the Void. WoW 2.0. Everything will reset and a similar but not exactly the same storyline will occur. While remaining in the corrupted timeline to give us a chance, Nozdormu, weakened from sending us back, is defeated and corrupted by the Void, thus resulting in Murazond. Will then use the timelines to stop us from rewriting the future. When I read this, I was like, it's a leak, dude. It's not even speculative. This sounds so, and I'm going to tell you why, dude. The rest of the video is now about 10.0 ending, 11.0 coming. This is what's happening. Okay, I'm trying to get all I'm so excited about this, dude. It's hard to even get all my thoughts together, okay? First of all, first BlizzCon in a really long time. Super, like, this is a big moment for Blizzard coming up here, okay? In November, whenever it is. Big moment. They have to have something massive to announce for all their games, okay? Now, D4 just ended, blah, blah, blah. Like, you could say whatever you want to say about the other games, but WoW needs to make a splash. Obviously, expansion announcement, biggest splash, okay? But it's the 20th anniversary of WoW. 2024 will be the 20th anniversary of WoW, okay? The 10th anniversary of WoW was Warlords of Draenor, dealing with old time stuff, right? So I don't know if that means anything. Whatever they're doing there, probably not related. But the 20th anniversary of WoW, it's like the biggest, like this is going to be huge. Whatever they do for the 20th anniversary is going to be huge. Now that's next November. That's not this November. That's a whole year away, okay? But they've been clearly planning stuff out for years now, okay? And the reason that I am firmly believing that this is happening is because when you think about it, pretty much everything from Legion has been setting this up. And I think before Legion, they were kind of just, they'd make the expansion and then they'd just see where it goes. And then there would be another expansion and blah, blah, blah. And I really look at like Classic, TBC, and Wrath, and maybe even Cataclysm as the first like years of WoW, like the first layer of WoW. Then MoP, WoD, those two expansions were like kind of really Cata, MoP, and WoD were all kind of connected, right? And then after that, it was like a completely different, like everything just goes nuts. The development of the game changes. They start adding all these new systems. Like it's a whole different type of game, right? So then Legion, BFA, Shadowlands, massively, like those are seemingly very heavily connected in their development and their story. But then Shadowlands, it's like kind of like, where did that story come from? It didn't make a lot of sense, okay? So let's let's recall the actual activities that took us to Shadowlands. So Battle for Azeroth, they free both like N'Zoth and Xal'atath and Queen Azshara and a bunch of characters that are crucial to this old god storyline are all kind of all in one year of WoW. And when you go and fight N'Zoth, A lot of people think it ended in a very, very bad way because we kind of just own him. Like he just has no shot of beating us. We're in his house somehow, and we still beat him. And there's been a lot of like weird, like lore books and things throughout the game, like Il'gynoth Whispers, that are kind of indicating that this should have been more of a moment and not really that fundamentally interesting to the universe. Okay. Then somehow the events of that and Shadowlands like bridge. Like it's not really ever explained, but between the ending of Legion with the sword and Illidan and all that, and then the ending of BFA with N'Zoth and the way that ends, it's a lot of cliffhangers, like a lot of stuff that just doesn't get resolved, right? So then at this point, they kind of like use Sylvanas to get us off this weird storyline that's been developing over those two expansions and take us to some whole new place, right? So it's almost like, they're using Sylvanas' character to foreshadow the future. And that is where we end up with Shadowlands. And frankly, like I love the expansion, but the story did seem kind of out of nowhere. And, even the jailer was doing things that are semi involved in this whole Titan situation. And yeah, very, very unique location, right? Because when you die, that seems to be where you go. And we just spent a full expansion fixing it, right? So I've been talking about this since BFA. I think they finally are going to do it where we lose, where we actually fail. And this is funny because I think this is what the game needs, story-wise. You would look at Dragonflight as an immaculate expansion in terms of what it's added to the game, right? Tons of crazy new ideas coming out, a recommitment to the basics of WoW. That is such an important thing for this game 20 years deep, okay? But why did they do it? Why did they revolutionize travel with dragon riding? Why did they come up with all these new, like this whole like loading screen situation with the two zones being overlapped, so it feels like it's all one zone, but it doesn't cause lag when they, like all of this new tech they're infusing into the game, returning old content, making leveling more compact, changing chromie time. Like they made a bunch of changes to chromie time just this patch, a bunch of basics, things that aren't even related to Dragonflight, right? Like you don't even need to buy Dragonflight to play half the content that's in the game. Between the talents, really the professions are, it's a revamp. A lot of the changes from professions are now in all the professions, like no matter what. It's like a really like a whole new like coat of paint over the game that's 20 years old. Why would they be doing that? Why would they do that now? To me, it seems like this is exactly why. Because they are trying to start us over in the next expansion. And like I said, I totally buy this. The Dark Titan thing is something that's been being set up since Legion and BFA. The sword is still there. They refuse to talk about it. Like they always make a joke out of it. It's clearly an important piece of the story. And I think, honestly, dude, Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands were all just setups for 11.0. Like, I really think that because it was like important events that had to occur but had no resolution because they knew they were going to resolve them down the road. And us as a player, it just looks ridiculous because that takes like 10 years of setting up and everything to pay off. But all the events look really weird and out of place. And, even when they were trying to defend Sylvanas, the developers were saying like, oh, Sylvanas not that bad of a character. You'll see, blah, blah, blah. They didn't do a good job of that. Like it didn't make a lot of sense at the time. But if you start thinking about everything that's happened at the end of all three of those previous expansions and where we're at now, I think that's exactly where we're going. And I think like literally this comment word for word is what's going to occur. We're going to lose, dude. The Titans are going to destroy the planet. And when they do, we're just going to end up in the Shadowlands. You know what I mean? Like we just set that all up so everybody who fails cannot like there's some closure to that. And then the whole Murazon thing and the whole Bronze Dragonflight thing, it's like, okay, we're ready to go. Let's do it. So they're going to make a WoW 2. And what I'm saying by WoW 2, and I think a lot of people hear that and they don't think about it properly. They have their preconceived kind of notions on what WoW 2 is. But when I'm talking about WoW 2, dude, I'm just talking about just storyline. It would be just storyline, and that's like I said, like a year ago in this video. Such a long video at this point, but like it's coming. It needs to happen, dude. We can't keep taking out these existential threats one after another and then keep ramping them up. Like they've reintroduced major lore characters, Illidan, Queen Ajara, characters that had not been featured in the game the whole time. Major characters that all seem to have something connected to them. Well, we're back. You know what I mean? This is what the end of this expansion is going to be. Season 3 is going to be about the world tree and establishing the fact that we are in a bad situation as mortals on a planet that is about to be torn apart. And then either the end of this expansion or like the pre-patch or something like that, this will happen. We will lose, and the next expansion will be us starting over, basically, in an attempt to try to fix that failure. Totally, I'm hook, line, and sinker, dude. If that is not what the next expansion is, I will be so confused, so surprised. But I'm telling you, WoW 2 sounds such an interesting concept. We've been talking, and because people have been talking about the idea of them doing a like a rework of Azeroth, like of Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, kind of like in Cataclysm, right? And a lot of the similarities there. The Black Dragonflight caused that, and Iridikron's going to cause this one, and they're seemingly inexorably connected. The two, Notharis or Notharian, whatever the character's name is, Deathwing and Iridikron. They are like, they're together. They're both involved in this void situation. They both have a lot of interesting things connecting them. And I think this is exactly what they're going for. So I don't know, man. Don't get too hyped. I'm too hyped. I'm warning you. I'm trying to keep it calm because I really don't care about this kind of. I'm gonna play the game no matter what. I've always said, like, even if I had to fight a gray blob in a gray room, I'm playing WoW. It's just too fun. But the world, the ideas of the universe, too cool, man. They just added new fog to Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms. They're changing a lot of stuff that doesn't have anything to do with Dragonflight. And to me, that is them getting it out there now. So when they do this whole revamp and we're back in Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms, and that would be the only content. Like, can you think about that? WoW 2, dude, it'd be classic all over again. I don't know if they're going to have us level. I don't know what they're going to do for the content, but you'll be back. Think about that feeling. That's going to be such an amazing feeling after 20 years of World of Warcraft to be back where it all started without those pressing, looming, dire consequences that seem to always be there. Because how can they go back to Azeroth? How can you go back to, the starting zones of Azeroth and not feel like this is paltry compared to killing N'Zoth or defeating the jailer or, all this stuff that's happened, these massive, massive, massive bad guys, these threats that basically we've just been, one after another, just batting away. Well, finally, it's going to come to fruition. Finally, all of those plots are going to entangle and they are going to succeed at their machinations, and we will lose. And I am so on board with that, man. I cannot wait to see exactly what they do. I will be here discussing this heavily. Hopefully by then, Cop will be back. Every year that they have big announcements, me and Cop always get together and do a big live stream talking about those announcements. But WoW 2, 10.0s and 11.0 start, year 20 of WoW. It is going to be I can't wait. I've never been more excited for a WoW expansion, and we don't know a single thing about it. The only thing I know about it is what this article and this, like, what I will call a leak has been telling us. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see a pristine version of Azeroth. I cannot wait to see how, because the art department has been knocking it out of the park. I cannot wait to see what a fresh coat of paint on an amazing universe has already, like what's already coming and what is going to come in the future. So thank you for watching. Please leave your thoughts on this if you did watch it all. You're badass. This is a bit of a rant, but there's a lot of people have been asking me about this. We've been talking about it on stream a lot, and I figured I might as well make a full video on it. So thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.